important, significant decisions we leaders take for the good of this country.
Not forgetting parenting.
Now you're raising kids or children who are in a totally different time. You get it. Those days your mother would just give you an eye and you know this is a problem.
Hey, there are visitors.
And it's just there are visitors
and
around.
Mom gives you this eye, you know?
Yes.
Catch more of this every Monday to Friday at 9 p.m.
Family Hour, empowering families. This is a Wednesday and it is a Holy Week, so we know all our moods are tuning to Easter. But it's also important that we bring you the very best here. This is Church of Uganda Family TV. Ebinos Nkalas is my name. And today is a Wednesday. Of course, for you who always follows us, you know that every Wednesday we talk about finances. Anything to do with finances is what we talk about every Wednesday. Today we are talking about the role of tax professionals in tax compliance. Of course, today we want to understand who a tax professional is. Someone can have a good mastery of taxes and then probably they call themselves tax professionals, but by the end of this show we shall be able to know what role these professionals really have to play when it comes to tax compliance, because we've talked about compliance and we've looked at the role of different people, different stakeholders when it gets to compliance. Now today we're talking about you, the professionals, and your role. Or maybe you are a taxpayer and you really want to know the role of these professionals. It's what we're discussing today. And with us is, of course, Dedan, and he's again with us. We are grateful to have you once again.
Thank you.
In this Holy Week.
Thank you.
Yeah. And kindly greet our viewers.
Yeah, good evening our viewers. Nice to have you again.
Nice to have you too, and like we've already said, we cannot stop thanking you for really dedicating this time to educate our viewers out there. And yeah, I believe people are really learning a lot out of these discussions that we've held for quite some time. But today we want to look at the role of tax professionals, and maybe just to start with, who should we call a tax professional?
Yeah, that's a good one. And why this topic is necessary for our people out there.
Yes.
Is that there are so many people out in the market trying to do tax matters, trying to handle tax matters.
Yes.
But what I can say is that not all of them, not all of us out there are actually tax professionals or tax experts for that matter. Currently, URA licenses tax agents or people that URA has vetted, and actually URA feels that they are fit to give tax advisory services to the taxpayers. Now, there is a special committee of URA. It is called Tax Agents Registration Committee. This committee is responsible for vetting and licensing tax agents, so tax professionals, and every license is actually valid for 1 year. So when we talk about tax professionals, it is not about just telling someone that you can file returns. That's not the point. Because the role of tax professionals goes far beyond returns. Actually, quite often, people have tried to minimize the role of tax professionals. When you say, I'm a tax expert, I'm a tax advisor, someone says, hey, you can file my returns. And that's why we come this evening to actually substantiate and educate our people. What is the role of a tax expert, a tax advisor? But also, who is this person called a tax advisor? I must say that people who, for example, have done CPA as a course, certified chartered account, it's not that they're actually tax experts. they have done some papers of tax, but to be a tax expert, these are people, one, they have been trained, they have studied taxation, but also have dedicated their time to research, to practice, and appreciate the tax laws and legislations. So it is not just about the qualification. We have those who are CPAs, they can hardly advise on tax matters. So what I want us to put clear is that a tax expert or a tax professional is someone who has studied taxation and can easily appreciate tax laws, has researched, but also is in practice. And on top of all, has been licensed by URA to practice taxation.
Okay.
Because that committee was put so that the public can actually know who is this person accredited, licensed to give tax advisory to taxpayers. Not all of us. There are many people you meet, they say, I'm a tax advisor, I'm a tax... But then the question is, what shows that you are a tax advisor? Now, today I must also say that if there is someone out there who is in need of a tax advisor, normally URA, after licensing tax experts, the experts are put on the URA portal. If I say I come from Demo Consult, if you put my name, the company name,
Demo
or
Consult,
the firm's name, Demo Consult, then it should come. URA has that where it has a provision where you can check for tax agents. So if you open that link, then it will tell you to put, say, a name or a TIN. If you wrote a name in that provision, then it should show that Demo Consult is actually licensed. Now, when you are dealing with a licensed company,
yes,
or a licensed firm, it gives you the confidence. Because you know, URA has scrutinized, it has vetted, so they are sure that actually this company with its people are firm. They know what they are doing. So let them go out and help our people. But also to say that tax professionals are a bridge between the taxpayers and the revenue authority. That they make a very big contribution when it comes to revenue mobilization and collection. Yes. Because we are the people. Every now and then we are educating our taxpayers. Here, this is your obligation.
And advising them.
Honor your obligation. You need to file on time. You need to pay your taxes. But also, when you look at whatever we have been discussing, I don't think we have had an evening when we have come and we don't talk about laws.
Yeah, there is no evening.
There is, yes. So, when you look at taxation the way it is a mixture of laws and accounting. So, legal and accounting, when you combine the two, you get taxation.
Yes.
That the legislators sit in parliament and make these laws. These laws, finally, they are interpreted and put into figures. Now, the moment you cross into figures, that is how accounting comes in. That taxation is one arm of accounting.
Yes.
Yes. Taxation is one arm of accounting. So, you cannot talk about taxation and you forget about accounting.
True.
Ideally, it is accounting first. I remember when we were talking about bookkeeping, I say that you cannot manage taxation when your bookkeeping is in a mess.
Yes.
Bookkeeping is a form of accounting. It is part of accounting. It is one arm of accounting. So I'm saying that there is no way we can discuss taxation and we don't discuss accounting. There is no way we can discuss taxation and we don't look at legal issues. So how does now a tax expert, a tax agent, a tax professional come in to help out?
Yes, yes.
You realize that URA uses the taxation laws and regulations to actually assess, administer, and collect taxes. Tax agent uses the same laws to represent defend, to educate, so that the taxpayer is in the know of what needs to be done at what point. But also, you realize that the legal knowledge, the legal language, plus the accounting language, they are not easy for us all to understand. So a tax practitioner, a tax professional comes in to interpret and make these things understandable to the lay people, to the taxpayers, so that as URA is talking about an assessment, for you meet the taxpayer and say an assessment is because it is something that URA has raised because you have failed on your obligation. It comes in because you have failed. You get the point? Yes. When we talk of a return, I have said here before that a return, you are looking at a formal communication between the taxpayer and URA actually, and the government through URA. So what are we saying here? That if you are talking to a taxpayer and you say you have not filed your returns, is that enough? Does the taxpayer understand what a return is, what to file is, you know? So as tax people, tax practitioners, we come in and try to make this language simpler for our taxpayers to understand. That is one. Two, we have a role of representation, which is very, very, very key. That the moment a taxpayer isn't satisfied, wants to go to URA to present his dissatisfaction, we come in and do it on behalf of taxpayers. Because the taxpayer is not conversant with the legal language, with the accounting language. Now, it is the role of a tax practitioner to go through the figures, that's the accounting bit, but also to look at the legal provisions, so that by the time I go to URA to represent Mukaras, I have the facts. I say, in a year, this man made only 10 million. Why are you assessing him 100 million? Someone who understands the accounting part, yes, the legal part. So by the time I'm talking to a URA officer, I talk with confidence because I know what I'm talking about. Whichever question that this person raises, I will answer confidently because I know the language, I know the role he's using. I'm also using the same role to actually represent the taxpayer. That's another role. Now, the common one that people are used to is filing returns. That returns is part of the compliance journey that we have always discussed here. That every taxpayer must communicate the affairs of his business. Now, you can only communicate the affairs of your business accurately through a return. Now, when you look at the way URA operates today, that almost all of these services are online. They are online based. So when we talk about returns, it's not all of us that we shall be able to file, because a return involves accounting. Accounting is not for everyone. A return involves now the legal provisions. Because by the time you put in a figure, there is what guides you to put this figure where you are putting it. So what am I saying? That now we come in as tax people, tax professionals, tax experts, to arrange these things so that we file things that are accurate, so that a taxpayer pays what we call a fair tax. Now, quite often, I've seen situations where people have tried to dodge using tax professionals. But at the end of it all, they try to file for themselves. The return will go. But along the way, URA does what we call return verification. At a point of doing return verification, URA will find gaps, things that we are not done properly. When these things are found, URA has a number of options. One, they can call you as a taxpayer to explain. That's one. Two, they can actually raise an assessment there and then. They look at things that are not right, they disallow them by raising an assessment. If they do that, of course, it becomes a liability on the side of the taxpayer. But even then, when possibly URA has raised an assessment, we look at, as tax professionals, we say, this is the situation. Our taxpayer has an assessment. What are the remedies available? What are the interventions that we can do to help this taxpayer? One, the question is, do you agree with the assessment? If the answer is no, then you have options available. One, that you can go through what we called an objection process. We discussed about this some time ago. An objection, now this is also done online. Now the fact that it is done online, it means it is not something that every other person can actually handle.
Yes.
But also, as you do the objection, you are telling URA that you people, what you did is not right. So me, I'm giving you the right position. What am I saying? That lodging in an objection, it goes with your actual return. Now, the moment you talk about the right or accurate return, it means it should be done again by a person who understands these things, so that you give URA the situation as is. When they call you to defend what you submitted, then you need this person who understands what was put where and why it was put there, so that URA is satisfied. Once URA is satisfied, they will just remove the assessment. You get the point?
Yes.
Now, but also there are situations that URA, according to their interpretation, they are not agreeing with you.
Yeah.
As long as you, as a tax practitioner, you feel a taxpayer has clear grounds, firm grounds, then there are other steps. You can go to tax appeals tribunal, and if you go to tax appeals tribunal, again, this is where lawyers sit. It is a court under the Ministry of Finance to handle these disagreements between URA and the taxpayer. Of course, these things are technical, that not every other businessman will go there to represent himself to urge out these matters. So it is now tax practitioners, both accountants and lawyers. This is their part to go and actually represent and urge out. We have seen several cases that URA disagrees, but when you reach for example, tax appeals tribunal, you win the case. We have also seen cases that you can go up to the Supreme Court trying to defend your taxpayer, and you finally win the case when you are at the Supreme Court. So what am I saying? That right away from filing returns up to Supreme Court, when you are trying to defend a taxpayer, all these are roles of a tax advisor. It can be a tax lawyer or a tax accountant. Now, when you look at the two, that a tax accountant does well on matters of numbers. When you are still at filing, when you are still at objections, those areas, because these are more of numbers. So a tax accountant will actually do very well there, possibly up to that. But beyond that, from that onwards, these are legal issues. That now you realize that even when you had a tax accountant, the tax accountant will co-opt a tax lawyer, because now it has gone beyond the figures. It is more of a legal interpretation. You get the point?
Yes.
So, as tax professionals, we work together out there if we are really to bring out the best.
So does it mean that, so for example, a tax advisory firm should have both a tax lawyer and a tax advisor?
Ideally.
Okay.
If they are to manage well. Now, we have seen the situation is now changing. Previously, lawyers, just out of LDC, because they do some paper and taxation, so they would come out, they want to be in the market as tax advisors. But today, the situation is becoming hard. That what they do at LDC is just a paper, 102. That cannot give you, that cannot give you a firm foundation for you to practice tax. That yes, you can read the law, but when you get into the details of numbers, you actually struggle.
So can at that very point, can URA still accredit a tax lawyer as a tax agent?
Yes. Why they do it is that tax matters they start from those figures I have talked about, but they also go into litigation. Now, what happens is that You can be a tax agent for a client, possibly in filing. Then they say, if we have representation, we have a tax lawyer. So even lawyers who qualify, they can be accredited. And they become also tax agents or tax advisors. Yes.
Okay. We were still, you're still explaining, and then I cut you short.
The other important point.
Yes.
Why we need tax professionals, or why we need actually to embrace.
Actually, I think the thing was why we need both tax lawyers and the tax agents in one firm. Yeah.
Yes. I was saying that when you look at taxation, it is a combination of law and accounting. That's why I'm talking about tax accountants and tax lawyers. That when issues involve numbers, you want to report to have numbers organized and presented to URA.
Yes.
That is something that is handled by tax accountants. But when you go, for example, 30 onwards, issues of court, they involve legal interpretation. Realize that an accountant, a tax accountant, cannot do well in that other direction. But it would also be wrong for a lawyer to say he will handle returns, he will handle objections where there are issues of figures. Apart from, today we have lawyers who have done accounting. We also have accountants who have done law. So it means that person is privileged to have knowledge from the accounting perspective, but also from the legal perspective. Now, that person can actually advise squarely that he can handle from the figure perspective, but also goes on up to, let's say, Supreme Court if there is a need. Yes. Some other important thing that I was about to say is that here in our economy, we have not appreciated well the role of professionals and specifically tax advisors. That's why I said that some people minimize tax advisors to filing returns. But me, I'm saying that can never be the case. Now, because we want to do these things ourselves, along the way, we are called in shit, if I may say. When things go bad, it's now when we think, who can help me? Who can help me? So quite often, we are called in to do post-mortem, which is it is costly, but it's also unfortunate that you do things in a wrong way. You mess up things. Everything is in a mess for 3-5 years. Because your is now squeezing you with audits, you feel I need someone to help me. That is very unfortunate. That where things would have put in order, and you be at peace with URA and you minimize these costs for you, you want to cut costs. Either you are employing the people I talked about, those who are moving around that they can do. Normally the difference lies here. That the person who does not have an office, the person who is possibly not licensed by URA is just moving around. A service that he would have charged 500, he will say, give me 100. Because taxpayers want to save. They are comfortable at the start dealing with the people who are charging.
We shall actually automatically know that you're overcharging us.
Exactly. But now, what looks as overcharging in the short run, in the long run, you realize that the person who seemed to be charging a raw figure one, the moment you get issues, you never look for this person and get him. Because you cannot trust them, they don't have any office. Two, they don't have the confidence because they know they are not licensed by URA. They don't have the confidence to interface with URA and urge out these matters. You get the point? So, the biggest or the core role of tax professionals is what we call tax planning.
Tax planning.
Now, when you look at tax planning, it is a good topic in taxation. Here you are looking at organizing, arranging one's tax affairs so that you pay the exact tax or you manage or minimize, if I can put it, the tax liability.
Okay.
Start by putting your house in order.
Yes.
That's why I'm saying organizing, arranging your business transactions. So that by the time the taxman is coming in to say you are meant to pay this or that, you are actually clean. You have planned ahead of the game. Now, that way you will avoid costs of postmortem. Very important that when we talk about tax advisory, it is not just advisory because you are in problems. And that's where we lose the whole point. After URA has started squeezing you here and there, you think of no Buchanans can help me. That is postmortem that I talked about. The ideal position, which I am appealing to all people in business, is that do tax planning. How do you do tax planning? Get a tax practitioner, get a tax expert, sit together and look at the affairs of your business in advance. We have seen, at least for foreigners, they do this, that as they come, when they want to invest, they will first get a tax expert to give a tax advisory. You want to establish maybe a manufacturing plant. Can you first know the tax implication in that sector? Now,
before you go for it.
Yes, foreigners who are coming here, some of these, they do this. It is part of their research. But for us, the locals or the Ugandans, we don't want to incur these costs. We just, because we feel we have capital, we don't plan for tax, tax as I said.
And we feel, sometimes we feel we are familiar with most of these things.
Yes, and I said last time that tax is the biggest cost in a business. So if it is the biggest cost, why should you feel comfortable going and borrowing to get capital, but you don't plan something that will actually take this money out of your business?
Sure.
That is why tax planning is so important, that we must engage tax advisors, tax practitioners to give us an advisory in advance before actually starting to invest. That is very, very, very key.
There is something you talked about that most of the Ugandans have looked at tax advisors only at a point of filing returns. But when we come back from the break, there should be someone who asks, okay, what other, besides tax planning, what other services should I expect from a tax professional and a tax advisor? And what else do they put on table besides this that we are pinning them for? We're taking a short commercial break, but we shall be back. from the break. This is Family Hour. We are looking at the role of tax professionals. Of course, we have very many, Ugandans are so creative. So you have very many people who masquerade out there. They're tax advisors, and sometimes they cheat us, or they do for us shoulder work that later lands us into a lot of issues. But here we are to know what exactly should a tax professional offer, or a tax advisor. In case you're looking for one, what are your expectations from one? Before the break, there is something that you talked about, that some of us look at tax advisors at a level of filing returns, and that's the only time we look for them. But I mean, institutions or organizations or companies have lawyers, that this is our lawyer as a company. Should it be the same case with a business, that for us as this particular business or company, this is our tax advisor, and they accounted for all the time?
Thank you. I think that is a very pertinent question, but you would want to first ask yourself, why, for example, should a company hire a lawyer full-time, or hire a firm to give these services full-time? Because they are anticipating things to go bad.
Yes. Because
they feel they need to be guided all through. Now, if we appreciate that tax takes sometimes up to 45% of your profit, then I cannot understand how an established company can survive without a tax consultant on board. Because as I said, in tax planning, we look at business transactions in advance. You want to buy this, but what will be the tax implication? For example, I've had cases where people transact. Let's say you sell land, and this land you are meant to withhold 6%. Then now the buyer was meant to withhold 6%. But the buyer just pays everything and it is done. Then after some time, because the land transactions go through the ministry and there is stamp duty payment, you are able to finally land with this transaction. But they know that one who is paying is meant to withhold 6%. So the question is, have you done this? No. URA gives you an assessment. So you can just see that one transaction like this, you would have saved so much by engaging a tax expert. Because this tax expert would have said, currently you cannot just pay, but you have to withhold a 6%. So why URA assesses you is that you have failed on your role. So this is something that is avoidable if you use a tax expert. We have seen things of, for example, pay as you earn. You pay your staff, you are not declaring. URA comes in after some time, they assess you. They can assess you, or they disallowed the expense called salaries. So that internally, as long as we have this expert, all the time, the expert is telling you, here, don't make this mistake, it is costly. Here, this is the treatment for tax purposes. If you treat it the other way, just know it will cost you so much. So, in summary, I say that everyone who is in business, you may not necessarily hire an expert from January to December, but at least make sure you have someone you can always consult about tax matters. Tax matters, they are not for everyone. You use a good word that there are many people masquerading around, but it's not that everyone who says I'm a tax agent is actually a tax agent.
Or everyone who speaks the language, because they have listened to a few terms in taxation, and then they can use those terms.
They can confuse our people, because just a few words one can say, yes, this person is a tax. But now that URA has these people on the portal, the firms on the portal, then we need to use the right people if we are needed to manage the tax issues. Yes.
There is also something you talked about. One of the other things that are expected of a tax professional is to help you in tax planning. And you actually exhaustedly talked about tax planning. But what else can someone look out for in a tax professional? That, okay, if I have a tax advisor here that I'm leaning on, besides returns, at least they can help me out in this and this.
Okay, I need to possibly to summarize them because, as I said, having a tax expert on your team or as part of your advisors will help you manage your tax affairs. When I talk about managing tax affairs, it is a whole journey of compliance. That now this tax expert will move with you from point A to point B to point C. He will ensure, have you registered for all taxes you are meant to register for on time? That is one. Because the moment you don't register on time, then there are penalties attached.
So they'll always remind you.
Remind you, but also implement. He advises, if you say, okay, let's go on, then he makes sure that you actually registered. That's one. Two, he's meant to help you, keep you like on your toes. Have you paid? Have you paid on time? Because by you paying on time, you are saving on penalties, you are saving on interest. Now, interest are a cost. That why should you pay an interest? You know you have deducted pay as you earn from your staff. Pay it on time. Plan for it that by 15th, I should also be paying as I pay my people. You get the point?
Yes.
Also, when it comes to filing returns, a tax expert will know which return is needed when. We have monthly returns, we have periodical returns. There are those which are in June, there are those which are in December. So this person, because this person is doing, this is his core. That you, instead of minding so much about URA, for you mind about the business. Your core, you are an entrepreneur, you are a businessman, you are not a tax man. So for you focus on, can I make as much money as possible? Then the experts will help you manage this money. That since the taxpayer has made his money, plan very well. That this money is for you, this money is for your staff, this money is for. But as I said, the tax practitioner, the tax expert should also help you to ensure that your bookkeeping is in a good form. Because with improper bookkeeping, then you cannot manage tax. But because he comes and does his checks, say no, here there is a problem. So he identifies a problem prior. Otherwise, when you wait for URA to first come and they do an audit and they identify these problems, then you will always be penalized.
So does it mean that my tax advisor will always help me out in auditing out some of these things before URA comes?
You see, what normally happens is that we, as taxpayers, we are not transparent enough. Yes, we lack transparency. But going to having a tax expert is like going to a doctor. You must explain the history of your whatever you are suffering from.
Yes.
And it is after explaining properly that now the doctor will say, hey, here I will give you Panadol. Here I will give you an injection. In trying to make you okay. So again, if you have this tax practitioner, open up all transactions. But we have seen some that even when they bring us on board, still they want to hide. So if you hide from a doctor, do you expect really to get the right medicine?
No.
You get the point?
Yeah.
But now, as I said, that compliance is a journey. It's a journey. Every now and then there are issues coming up. Tax looks at each and every transaction that the business does. You get the point? So the role of a tax expert, a tax practitioner, is to guide you. This transaction will bring this tax impact. This transaction will have this implication. So it cannot be a one-off. If you just hire someone a one-off and 2 years you have not engaged, just expect post-mortem costs. When URA is squeezing you, you are also calling, man, come and help out. But you realize that sometimes we can no longer, we find ourselves in a situation where we can no longer help. Because URA has against you, URA is trying to attach your products, your properties here and there. What do we do? What we can only do is engaging them and we negotiate. We say, you are demanding someone, not the other 90 million that I saw. You are demanding someone maybe 10 million, but this person is asking, can he pay it in 3 installments? Now that negotiation, we do better as tax experts because we know that actually it is one's right to ask for this. but the taxpayer may not know.
Yeah.
So, as long as there is anything that is happening between the taxpayer and the authority, then when we come in, we make the discussion easy, because we come from the technical perspective, that we engage our colleagues at URA. They are tax people, we are also tax people. Only that for us we are private, for them they are in the government. So whenever we are discussing, we make it simpler to understand one another. Now, we have seen taxpayers who have made things, can I say, they have made things worse. They want to represent themselves, but they represent themselves on matters they don't understand. Understanding your business affairs does not mean that you understand the tax implications. That is a fact.
Okay.
Now, for you, you say, let me go to your and I talk to them.
Yeah. I can convince them.
Have a meeting with these guys, and these days they take minutes. Whatever you are saying, someone is writing. Whatever you are saying, someone is writing. Even the information that will act against you, you are disclosing it there. Instead of talking to your tax expert for guidance, for you want to run to URA, which is a very big mistake that we are making. Because if
you want to bypass the cost,
even if
of
you
the
have
tax
done
advice.
all these wrong things, if you talk to a tax expert, for example, we have a window at URA that is called voluntary disclosure. I may find you in a total mess where I'm sure that the moment URA runs on you, even the business will close. But because me, I know that there is a window for voluntary disclosure, I will say, now, let's go fast and disclose before they come. So once we go and disclose, then the penalties and interests will be waived off. You only pay the principal. That way we shall save the business. But for you, you will go there, someone will use this information, because voluntary disclosure, there is a formal way of doing it. Not when they have invited you and you start disclosing. No, as long as they have already invited you, then there is a problem that they have identified. So it's now from their end. But for voluntary disclosure, is you going to your end and say, I have made these mistakes for the last 4 years, but now I'm bringing myself on the table. But this discussion, to make it very easy for both the authority and the taxpayer, engaging this technical person makes it far, far better. Results are always good that way. Yes.
Well, there is something also that goes around, especially on the tax that is levied on the cars that people buy. Is there a way I should first talk to my tax advisor before the purchase of this particular car so that we can negotiate the tax?
That's a good one. Now, when it comes to customs on motor vehicles,
yes,
normally we have, alongside tax agents, we have also what we call clearing agents. Now, some of us tax experts, we do both. We look at both customs taxation and domestic taxation. It is very, very important that before you go for any item that you would want to bring into the country, talk to an expert, whether a clearing agent, whether a tax agent, so that you are guided. Because sometimes you may bring something that is prohibited. Yes. So it's important. There's what we call prohibited goods, there is what we call restricted goods. So it is important to discuss with an expert and say, I plan to import this and that from, say, Japan, America, or wherever. So that someone says, hey, if you import this, one, this will be the tax implication. Oh, this one you cannot. This one you cannot enter the country. You get, if for example you happen to just import, and these things are, you bring them here and they find they are prohibited, either you have to export them to another country, or they are burnt at your cost. Yes.
So serious.
Yes. If you bring things that are prohibited into the country, either if the government allows you to export, you take them back, or they are burnt at your cost. So why
the exporting is still at your cost?
Yes. Yes. It's like take them away from this country. So when it goes into international business, it is very, very important that it is not just about your capital. It is about having the right information as and when you need it. Can you discuss with an agent before you actually think of ordering? What are you ordering? What's the tax implication? We have different tax bands. We have those where import duty is at 0. We have where import duty is at 10%. We have where import duty is at 25. There are even those where import duty is at 100 or 70%. But the important point here is when you sit with a tax expert, he will tell you this item, when you bring it, it will pay this tax. It will pay VAT. Or this one does not pay VAT. This one will pay import duty. This one does not pay import duty. Now, what I'm explaining applies to all products, including the cars that you asked about. That as long as you want to bring motor vehicles, I can just give an example about motor vehicles. That the moment you import a car that has, when you look at the year of manufacture is older than 10 years, there is a surcharge of 50%. It's more of a penalty. That's an old car as per the rules of Uganda today. That you are penalized for buying an old car because that old car, the thinking behind it, they are making it expensive so that we don't run into buying old cars. So they are encouraging that they buy at least newer ones within 10 years. You get the point? So if you
so meaning if I bought a car that was manufactured in 2013, I face the penalty, the surcharge of 50%.
Yes. Yes. By the way, to add something, that today a car that is 15 years old does not enter Uganda.
15 years old?
Yes. It doesn't enter Uganda. So if you just buy and it doesn't enter, so won't you make a loss?
It's a very big one.
Yes, you make a loss. So that's why it is important for us all to discuss with technical people. You see, even when we go into medical, the medical world, you don't just need to, you feel pain, you want to go and just buy medicine. Which medicine are you buying? Now the same thing goes into all these other professions. You want to build. You don't just start building without having all these professionals do their work. So why in the business, why would we want to just transact without knowing the tax implication? Yes.
Wow, I see it is a very serious thing. But now there is something you talked about. You talked about the prohibited products. But what about the restricted products? What happens to the restricted products?
For restricted products, these are products that are brought into the country after being authorized to come in. Or,
who authorizes?
I'm coming to that.
Okay.
Or products which there are a few entities. If, for example, you are to look at guns, do you think each and every Ugandan has the right to import a gun? That is just as an example. Yes, that it is the government that does this. Guns are coming into the country, it is through the government. So yes, they will come, but under who? Not me and you just wait.
So I don't go to America and I find guns sold cheaply and then I say, let me buy some form.
No. That is why, even when you look at the security companies, how do they acquire guns? They have to first register with police. They have, I think, a whole department at the Uganda Police that is responsible for regulating them. So they go through a process until they acquire these guns and the guns are paid for. So the government must know that this security company is taking these guns. But anyway, issues of security, that's a different area. I'm a tax person.
You're a tax person. Well, I see it is now really important, and from this discussion I realized that it is really important that before you take any move or any step, it is important that at least there is this tax advisor who speaks in your business or who speaks to guide you in each and everything that you're doing. You know, of recent, we have very many people who are misleading people on social media. No, you can come to China, buy these products. This is how we buy them cheaply, and I know this is how you can bypass the tax and do this and this and this. But I realize that you're digging your own grave by following that. Well, what are your closing remarks on our topic today?
Now, as I conclude, one is that we can no longer dodge taxes, but we can plan to manage taxes. Two, that if you are out there and you are struggling with taxes, you have assessments, you feel like abandoning your company, my advice is just look for a professional tax person who can sit together, discuss, engage URA, clean up your company, comply, and keep using your company. Use licensed tax agents, tax professionals.
Wow, thank you so much. And I cannot add anything on that, but just to encourage you to always do the right thing. When you do the right thing, you save yourself from a lot of troubles, you save yourself from a lot of issues. And yeah, what we do here on Church of Uganda is to make sure that we give you the right information so that you can use this information and do the right thing, because you realize that there is a lot that happens out there. Everyone thinks they can do. Of recent, we have lawyers that have offices on TikTok and they keep on educating people on matters of law. So it's possible that we have tax advisors who have been registered by TikTok and been licensed by TikTok, but it is important that you get the right information so that you don't fall a victim of some of these things we have talked about for quite some time. We cannot go beyond this point. It's a Wednesday, tomorrow is a Thursday, and a Friday, Good Friday. Adrian Austin Mukalazi is my name. I've worked with Brinko, Norman, and very many other people out there so that you have this show. And we also want to really send our regards to the entire team of Demo Consults. Yeah, we are really grateful for the work and for the commitment to come and share with our viewer out there some of these pertinent issues. Thank you so much, and from the entire team, it's a good night.
Family Hour, empowering families one episode at a time. Together, we build strong, healthy, and thriving families with our daily dose of inspiration and expert insights on topics that matter, like education and career growth.
A child may be a good entrepreneur, but you're forcing the child to make sure that she passes sciences in order for her to be a what? A nurse.
Family health.
No one should one day tell you that, hey, since you have diabetes, you should not take Caro. That's a lie. There's what you call portion control.
Finance and wealth.
Keep track of your spending. And part of the spending, of course, as we said, be able to separate wants from needs. That's secondary.
Leadership and governance.
There are people who take on the political aspect and try to water down important, significant decisions.